Welcome to Heal with the Real, the podcast where we hold space for truth, healing, and transformation. I'm your host, Amanda Haig. I'm a survivor, founder, and a fierce believer that your past does not define your future. This is the place where we go beyond surface stories, where survivors, change makers, and healers come together to speak openly about what it really means to recover, rebuild, and rise after trauma, after abuse, and after the silence. Every episode brings you real conversations with people who've walked through the fire and found their way to purpose. No fluff, no filters, just raw honesty, heart, and hope. Because healing starts when we stop pretending, and here we keep it real. So, my guest today is Dr. Sonia Ahmed, and I'm just grateful that you're here with us. I'm going to let you do a little bit of an intro, but just a little bit of background. You're a chartered counselling psychologist, EMDR therapist, and founder of Serene Psychology. You've got over 12 years of clinical experience supporting survivors of trauma, and you do specialist training, and you provide that expansive work covering PTSD, domestic abuse, and forced marriage, which we'll get into a bit further down the line. Um, yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself and say hello to the listeners?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for introducing me so well, by the way. So, I'm Dr. Sonia Ahmed. I'm a chartered counselling psychologist. I'm based up north in the northeast in Sunderland. I currently have my own practice, which is serenepsychology.com. And my main speciality is in trauma and PTSD, more specifically domestic abuse and honour based abuse.
Okay, and you've been doing that for 12 years.
So, I've been working as a therapist for 12 years. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, what led you into that? What was your passion to do that?
Do you know what? I always reflect back onto that one experience that we had in secondary school where we got the chance to work with a mental health service in producing a play on mental health, on raising awareness on self harm and suicide. And it got me interested in the world of mental health from there. Otherwise, I was absolutely oblivious to it. And since then, I just kept on doing research, looking at okay, what is this about, being really interested in it. So I decided to do psychology at A level, and then from there, didn't know what to do. I thought, let me do it at a degree level. Did psychology and got really interested into understanding people's behaviors and how the mind works. And then from there, there was a module on counselling psychology as an option in the third year.
Amazing.
And I thought, do you know what? This is what I want to do. That's the field I want to go into. And luckily enough, the year after, I got into the counselling psychology doctorate, and here we are today.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit about school life for you. So you mentioned mental health, which is incredible that they came into school to do that. At what age were you then?
So it would have been around secondary school age. So I'm guessing I was around 13 or 14 because it was in the middle of secondary school. And it was just a one off project that our class got chosen to do.
Ah, okay.
So they had a videographer come in, the charity came in and started recording different aspects of sort of how mental health could affect school, depression, self harm, suicide. And it was a really interesting piece of work. And I remember at the end of the year, when you have your little yearbook and they ask you what you want to be, I specifically wrote psychologist. And that was
Wow.
so interesting because looking back now, I thought, wow, I've achieved that. So that was obviously
Yeah.
in my mind from a very long time.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's that reticular, in your brain that you've already focused on that's what I want to do and want to be. That's amazing because not often young people know where they want to go or what they want to do, let alone actually achieve that thing as well. So I
Absolutely.
take my hat off to you. Amazing.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Can we just talk a little bit about so the mental health people came to do this project, then you went to do school. What was life like growing up for you in school? Did you see were you in an English school or did you settle here later in?
No, I was born and brought up in Sunderland, actually. I've been
Oh,
in
okay.
Sunderland all my life, yeah.
Okay.
I've been born and brought up in the UK, went through the English school system. No issues, pretty straightforward. You know, a lot of people have suffered from racism or bullying. I guess I could say I was being one of the lucky ones that had never had any issues. Got my GCSEs, went to college, A levels. From when I was 16, I worked a part-time job because I always wanted to be independent. So through college, university, even the PhD, I was working. When it came to the thesis, I thought I can't do everything, so I had to leave the job to focus on the thesis side of things. But then straight after the doctorate, got back into the world of work.
Okay, amazing. Can we talk a little bit about, I'm not going to hit on, I know that you are also a survivor,
Yeah,
and we're not going to go into that story just for personal reasons, and that's absolutely fine. But did you think that has propelled you into where you are now as well, to do the things that you're really focusing on, domestic abuse and PTSD? Because for me, I know that I definitely got PTSD from my abusive situation and it never goes away.
yeah,
But, I take my hat off to people that are now using that power to put into supporting other people. So
yeah.
was that kind of the driving project for you, a driver for you to really go and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I got married when was it? It was in 2012, I think it was. So that was my first marriage. That was the one who was abusive to me. So it only lasted 9 months, and that was in the middle of my doctorate. So I had to
Wow.
actually pause my doctorate just to get through the whole divorce and the whole process, which was mentally very, as you can imagine, exhausting. Um, and after I got through that, I was very much determined and focused on, right, okay, let's get back into my career, let's get back onto doing what we want to do. Um, and then my thesis actually was included the wounded healer concept. And I don't know if you've heard of that, but you basically are a healer of the wounds that you've been through. So when you go through something, you help people who have gone through similar things because of your own experience. And it's very much like that with me, where I went through an abusive situation and I thought, you know what? I've been through it. I know what it's like. I want to help people in my situation. And that's exactly what got me through in this field. And it's interesting because I speak to other people who have been through it, other therapists, and they're the opposite. And they say, because I've been through it, I couldn't even think about dealing with it with other people because it hits on something for them. Whereas for me, I've turned that into something positive where I want to empower people and I want to help people as a result of my experiences.
Yeah. And I think lived experience is so important. You can't go to support anybody and understand empathically what they've been through unless you've had that lived experience as well.
Absolutely.
It's so important. And so thank you because there are these people that are putting their pain into their passion and so I thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about honor-based abuse. Um, just because our next phase of our research with our software is specifically for refugees, asylum seekers, and making our software accessible as possible for those people that aren't getting seen because they haven't got the rights to be in the country. So, but also honor-based abuse in terms of my volunteer who's now part of the team. She was brought over into an arranged marriage and brought into modern slavery.
Mm.
How common is that?
Honor-based abuse, I think, is very common, but it's hidden. Hence why we don't see it as much. I think there are a lot more sort of people speaking about it now, but it is still very hidden. And if we think about what honor-based abuse is, it comes under the heading of domestic abuse, and it is about maintaining one's family's honor and respect and doing things that don't dishonor the family. So as a result of that, individuals get controlled and coerced into doing things that they probably don't want to do. Um, And if we think about what honour-based abuse is, I know there's a few specifics that come under honour-based abuse, such as FGM, which is female genital mutilation, and forced marriages, which is a very common one, especially within my community, the South Asian community, hence why I know a lot more about that. Forced marriages, again, are coming out a lot more because people are speaking about them, but they've probably been going on for centuries
Yeah.
without us even being aware. And even if we think about arranged marriages and forced marriages, there's a fine line between the two, and a lot of people get confused. And the more simple way of defining them is that you have consent within arranged marriage. You can say yes or no to that marriage. Forced marriage, you don't have a choice. However, sometimes what happens, even in an arranged marriage, if you say yes, you don't even realize you've been coerced to say yes to that marriage. So again, it can get quite blurred in between. But with honour-based abuse, I think more and more stories are coming out, more and more people are speaking about it, more and more people are wanting justice and are not actually adhering to these old school values.
Or not even knowing, as an example for our volunteer, she didn't even realize or even know where to go. So if you're in
Yeah,
that situation, you've come from a country, say, for instance, in her case, Pakistan,
yeah,
and she's come over to the UK, she's alone all of a sudden. She's got no support network around her. She doesn't know where to turn to for any emergency. So I'm guessing how many more people are in that very same situation that are stuck in modern slavery in homes in the UK. How do
absolutely.
you think we combat this? What would be the best way for um us to just raise awareness around it,
Yeah.
but B, around those communities to say that this is not acceptable?
And that's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's a
Yeah,
really complex situation. You do have people that come from Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. A lot of them are more educated these days, but you do get some that come from the rural areas, the villages, who don't speak the language, who don't understand what's going on. And they come here and they are trapped, they're isolated, they financially have to rely on their partner or their partner's family. So they feel as if they can't leave. So they feel stuck and they don't know where to go and what to do. And I think the first thing is psychoeducation. Absolutely, like you say, raising that awareness, but in a more indirect way. So if they are able to get out of the house, go to social events, go to communities where they do feel a sense of belonging, and through those communities get educated on what's right and what's wrong subtly, so that families don't know where they're going and what they're talking about. Things like that can be really key. I mean, here in Sunderland, I was just talking to the head of We Aside Women in Need, and we were discussing how there's groups and classes that are coming under the name of women's well-being, but actually what these well-being classes are about is about educating them on
yeah.
what abuse is and what it looks like and what support that they can get, so they can indirectly get that help.
And that's really important, I think, as well, because if their perpetrator thinks that they're going to some well-being event, then that's okay. So yeah, I think that's so important to change that name. Or and how dangerous is it for that person, the victim that is living with their perpetrator to even get that support anyway?
Absolutely. And other small little things as well to do, like for example, when they go to doctor's appointments and they have family members there with them, or any appointment, try and get them alone. Try and have that discussion with them alone if possible. So they don't feel as if they can't speak, and they are able to have a chance to have discussions just to see if there's anything there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to read a few stats. So gender-based violence among migrant and refugee women in the UK face heightened risks of GBV due to intersecting factors such as immigration status, which we've just mentioned, language barriers, which we've just mentioned, and limited access to support services, and maybe not even knowing where to go, which we all already touched on. And it's unreported, it's underreported, should I say. So studies suggest high vulnerability, especially within asylum systems and informal housing. Now, one young lady that specifically really sticks out in my mind is the young 27-year-old lady that went out. She was brought from Oldham into a refuge in Bradford. And last year she was stabbed when she was out with a baby, with a pram. And, it just broke my heart hearing. It's just, there's murder after murder. It just seems like there's so much violence against women. And what are your thoughts on that? And because I think it stems back to such an archaic time, I think. And narratives, like you say, are slightly changing,
Mhm.
but it's still that power within the male demographic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah,
It was absolutely horrendous. I mean, my heart just sank when I read that story. And again, it's a story about wanting to survive and wanting to live and wanting to be able to stay away from the risk that she was under. And within the South Asian community, I think for men in particular, not justifying it in any way, but there is a strong patriarchal thing that still goes on with it now, where the men's class is the breadwinner, the men's is seen as the sort of top end of the family, and he's the one that's in control of all the decisions, and the women just conform. And because of that, if the women don't go with that and the women don't adhere, then they're subjected to abuse and torture. And
yeah,
it's a case of actually, no, that isn't the case. And we need to have education around that, you know, abuse is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. Women
yeah,
have a voice, women have a right to say no, women are not slaves, they are human beings with human rights.
yeah, yeah. Do you see it changing within your, do you, when, within your practice, do you see it changing, or do you see more people coming through your doors because they are speaking up and they are opening up?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people that are speaking up about it now as media sort of promotes it, as there's more podcasts, there's more people speaking about it. Women are starting to find their voice, and women are starting to seek that support. And what I've noticed, particularly for immigrant women as well, there's a lot of support that is happening through schools, and through other services that you might not even think of, where they actually can come into these places, and like the talk and tea, is it tea and talk or whatever it is that they have, little
Yeah,
things like that, where they can get involved and have conversations, and through these conversations they're finding out actually there are other women like me, there are people out there like me, and there are services out there that could help me, and that's given them the courage then to speak out.
yeah, because you do feel alone in that moment. You feel like that you're the only person that this is happening to, and how could you be so stupid? How could you? And there's just all these things that come with it, the fear, the shame, like you said, it's the shame on the family as well. It's a tricky one. How what would you think would be a really good way of communicating with women that are going through this situation, and what advice would you give to somebody that kind of came across in your services and was in that situation?
I think for every individual, it's different and it's very subjective, and they have to be ready to make that decision to leave. And it's about supporting them through that. So for me, it's about providing them with the advice and the education that they need to make an informed decision. Because even if it's non-South Asian, even in white communities, women that are in abusive relationships might not be at the stage where they're ready to leave and ready
Yeah,
to take that step. But if they've got the information, for example, like a safety plan or a risk plan, and they know what steps that they need to take, it's about supporting them until they feel ready to take that step, and guiding them through that and being with them. And I think a lot of the times we as practitioners and people who support victims want to just scream and say, just leave, but it really isn't as simple as that. And we need to be in a position where we can support them and contain them and guide them based on whatever stage that they're at.
yeah, yeah. And you're so right. A lot of people go, well, why didn't she leave? That's something that comes up quite a lot. Why didn't she leave? But there's so many factors why people don't leave. And
Yes.
actually, a survivor can go back to their partner anything up to 7 times. Um, it could be children, they have children together. That's a huge, huge factor. And, they don't want to split their family up. They want their children still to see their father. All these demographics, like you say, the control of the money, they don't have the money to leave. They feel that they've no confidence. They've it's been grounded into them for over how many years that they've been abused by their partner, that they're not good enough, that they're not, they're just rubbish. So your confidence is just at an all-time low. They're just a variable,
Yeah.
different
Nobody's going
factors.
to want them, where they're going to go. Their self-esteem has been diminished to the point where they feel as if they've got no choice but to be with that person
Yeah.
because they've got no one else.
Yeah.
And there is that element of trauma bonding as well, that actually it's not safe, but because it's familiar and a lot of us don't like change, we'll stay with that because we don't know what's out there.
And it's so true, you just fall back into that safety net, even though it isn't safe.
Yeah,
Because it's that fear of what's the next thing, and it's just the same in anybody's life without abuse factor within that, we just automatically go back to what makes us feel safe.
absolutely.
The point I just wanted to just raise, you said about a safety plan. What could somebody do to make a safety plan?
Understand your partner's routine as a starting point. So, for example, know when they leave the house, know when they come back in. Do you have keys for the doors? Do you have people outside of the house that you could go to if you were ready to escape? Can you drive? Do you have access to a vehicle? Are you able to keep a mobile, a sort of an emergency mobile somewhere separate, so that if you were ready to leave, you could call somebody, or if there was an emergency call, is there anybody that you've spoken to, that they'll be ready there to help you whenever you feel ready to leave? Little things like that to make sure whenever you do feel as if you're ready to exit, it's in a safe way and it's planned.
Yeah, yeah. And would you suggest anything online that could support people with that phase, or if they're feeling ready,
Mm-hmm.
what would you advise if they felt that it was now was the right time for them to leave? What would you advise for them to do?
If you go on online, have a look at your local domestic abuse website. They'll have loads of resources on there. Things like Harbour, if it's a forced marriage, places like the Halo Project. Um, your local domestic abuse services will be able to support you through that and be able to advise you on what the best action is to take. If you feel as if you're in immediate risk at that time, call the police. They'll be able to get you out straight away.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the services are getting much, much better for survivors, but there's still a huge wait list
Yeah,
for people to get seen for therapy. So
yeah.
what is your service? Do you have a wait list? Do you have people regularly? How does it work?
So because it's private therapy, it's quite expensive for a lot of people, but there is a wait list. So once people find that they're out of an abusive marriage, they're financially stable, they're ready to process and deal with the trauma, then they tend to come to me. But I also have contracts with services in London and locally as well, domestic abuse services who refer their clients on to me, who where they have the funding to do so, and then I'm able to support them in that way as well.
Okay. Okay, so it's normally referral from the services for your
Normally services, but also quite a few self referrals that come through as well.
okay, and you have a wait list as well.
At the moment, I have a 2 month wait list. However, I do
Okay,
have associates that I've taken on, which means I'm able to get through that wait list quite a lot. The associates I've taken on, they're trauma informed, and they work with trauma, so they specialise in that area as well.
nice, nice. What do you do to keep yourself motivated? And because I know for me, I was left with a lot of PTSD and there was a lot of unraveling to do, but it's ongoing, it's just constant. So, what do you do? So, seeing all these people that are coming to your service, offloading on you, how do you get, because you'll be absorbing all that trauma from other people, how do you offload and make sure that you keep your mental health as tip top as possible?
Yeah, I think the first thing is boundaries are key. So I have a set time where I check my work phone, I check my emails. As soon as work is over, everything's switched off so I can separate myself from them. Outside of that, I've got my little boy that I love to spend time with and my family, and he's very much like me. So he loves his theme parks, he's outdoorsy. So I spend a lot of time with him doing all of these sort of outdoorsy things, which is really fun. Every
Nice.
girl loves a little bit of retail therapy and spa treatment, so that's definitely my go-to as well. And just really reconnecting with nature, and that's one thing that I say to a lot of clients in terms of self-care. Even if you can't afford to do things like go to the gym or a course, get yourself out there in nature, and it makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I live 10 minutes away from the seafront, so I
Oh,
get,
wow, nice.
yeah, I get to walk along the coast every day and just breathe in some fresh air.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's lovely. So, yeah, walking in nature, all the free things, actually.
Yeah.
There's
And
so many free
that's the
things.
thing, and people don't realize that it's a form of self-care. Even things like putting a face mask on, having a hot bath, doing something for you, painting your nails, these are all self-care. This is you taking care of yourself. This is
Yeah.
you putting yourself first, and little things like that can make a big difference.
For me, massively is meditation. I did journal. I haven't been journaling, I must say, for a while.
Mhm.
But when I first started my healing process, I was journaling every day and without fail. And that was part of my growing stage, I guess, and becoming more resilient. But yeah, it's something that maybe I will get back to, I think,
Yeah.
because it was really great. And my journaling ended up becoming my book and it just kind of went from there. Um, but yeah, journaling for me is massive. Exercise, just doing exercise on a morning. I will get up on a morning and do half an hour, get my favorite tunes on and just do my workout because I think for me, that healing process was really going deep within and doing the things that made me feel good, like losing weight, getting fitter, being healthier, all those kind of things.
Yeah. And these are going to make a massive difference because, as we know, mind and body are connected, and
Yeah,
trauma usually represents itself physically, anyways,
yeah,
before you even recognize it mentally. So, and that's quite common in our culture where we might not recognize anxiety and depression, but we know when we're going to have a stomach ache or we've got a headache, and it's about recognizing that these could actually be something more than a physical issue. So, doing things like going to the gym or yoga is a brilliant one as well, something that's going to get your body moving. You'll actually notice that it helps with the trauma that you've got locked in your body. And how many things are offer free on YouTube? So even if you can't afford it, get on YouTube and just move your body around a little bit, and you'll find it'll be really helpful.
yeah, I love it. And so something that you just said as well, with trauma, if it's really deep trauma and that you've never dealt with it,
Mhm.
and we're talking, we could be going back to childhood trauma as well, because there's all that, isn't there, on top of maybe abuse as well.
Yeah.
How do we unpack all that? What's the best way to unpack bit by bit and kind of understand all these little pockets of trauma and how you've then become, I guess, codependent or in these abusive or unhealthy relationships?
I think doing it in a safe and contained way, like therapy, is really important, where you have a trained therapist who will be able to make those links for you and help you be aware of what you've been through in childhood and how that can then relate and manifest into adulthood. Because, as we know, if you've witnessed domestic abuse or you've been involved in abuse as a child, more than likely you will end up in an abusive relationship in an adult. And again, it comes back to what we've internalized and what we know as familiar,
Yeah.
and we always go with what's familiar. So the way I work in therapy is in three steps: raise awareness, make change, and prevent relapse. And that's sort of my model of working with all my clients, is help them to understand the links and have that awareness of how their childhood has impacted them, what beliefs they've developed as a result of those childhood experiences, how it's then influenced their adult relationships, and use that then to make change and sort of challenge those behaviors and promote change in a positive and safe way.
Yeah. Um, for me, I had to when I was writing, it helped me to page dump because a lot of the time you've got all this in your head
Yeah,
and you don't make sense of it until you kind of, for me, page dumped it all.
yeah,
And then, okay, yeah, that just makes sense now. It really, it was like putting a jigsaw puzzle
yeah.
back together and understanding all the different parts of my life and
Mhm.
why it attributed to being then in unhealthy relationships. It's really interesting.
And therapeutic writing is one of the techniques that we use in therapy as well, like you say, journaling. But it's about that individual and whether they have that level of awareness and psychological mindedness to be able to make those connections. Because if you've been through so much trauma, you might not have that level of awareness to be able to make that connection. You and myself, we've been trained to be aware, we've been trained to be psychologically minded, but someone who maybe hasn't, then it's very important for them to have someone to help them support and guide through that. But things like journaling, I think it's an absolutely amazing thing, just to get everything out your head, write it down, and then once you read it back, you can start making sense of everything.
Yeah, yeah. So therapeutic. So therapeutic. Unpacking it all. Is journaling something that you would do or
No, no, I never got into it. I started, but writing just wasn't for me. Journaling just wasn't for me. I didn't find it worked. For me, it's very much been about recording videos and doing video diaries, I suppose.
okay.
So I do a lot on social media where I talk about various traumas, and I talk about domestic abuse a lot on social media, and that's my way of helping myself heal through that process as well, I guess. So
Yeah,
we all have different ways. For some it's writing, for some it's audio, for some it's visual, for some it's art.
yeah.
Creative, everyone's got their own, and it's about finding what works for you.
Sure. Positive affirmations were another thing for me as well. Just looking because I didn't ever want to look in the mirror if I was
Yeah,
totally honest with you. Um, but then it was about, okay, beginning to love what I saw back.
yeah.
And that really worked for me. I don't know if that was something that you used at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most common things when you've gone through something like abuse, whether it's domestic abuse or honor-based abuse, you don't love yourself. You don't have that self-esteem. It gets crushed. You begin to hate the person that you've become. So many different factors that play in it, but you have to learn to love yourself again, which can be one of the hardest things to do. But it's
Yeah,
about treating yourself right. It's about giving yourself that love, being compassionate. How would you talk to a friend if they were in a similar situation? Give yourself that advice, be
yeah,
caring, do things for yourself, and positive affirmations, just little things like getting up and brushing your hair, just looking after you, even the basics is a step forward. And I always say this to everybody, it's about the small steps. It's not about big jumps,
yeah,
it's about taking those small steps.
it is. And it's just those small steps every day will then lead to those bigger steps of
Absolutely.
healing. It's been really interesting speaking to you today. Thank you so much for being on. I could speak to you for hours, to be honest. How do we get in touch with you? And oh, not we, but the listeners, if they needed any support, do you do online services?
Yeah, so I do online therapy and face to face in Sunderland. So you can get in touch with me by emailing me at sonia@serenepsychology.com. My website is serenepsychology.com if you wanted to have a look. But I'm on social media everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as Dr. Sonia Ahmed. So you can have a look through there. And I post quite a bit of like helpful advice on domestic abuse and trauma. So if you need any support, you can always get in touch with me in that way as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And I really appreciate you being a guest today. Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
Take care. Bye now. Thank you for being here for Heal with the Real. If something in today's conversation spoke to you, please know you're not alone. Healing isn't linear, but it is possible. And every time we share our truth, we make space for someone else to do the same. If you found this episode helpful, please share it, leave a review, or connect with us online. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care of your heart, honour your story, and remember your voice has power. This is Amanda Haig, and you've been listening to Heal with the Real.